Mika, and welcome to another edition of Soccer on Wheels. I'm here with Erik Bergrud of the Kansas City Comets. What's up, Erik? How are you?
Hey, everything's up to date in Kansas City, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So let's start out and obviously talk a little bit about the Comets last year. How did you think their season went?
Well, I think that there was disappointment in Kansas City. If you go
Yeah,
back two
absolutely.
seasons when there were three divisions, the Comets were Central Division champions. They
Yep,
they were
yep,
very hopeful to win the Eastern Championship last year, and things didn't work out that way. And
yeah.
they made some changes along this summer, and I
hmm
anticipate that they'll be more competitive in the upcoming season.
So what kind of changes do you see in Kansas City?
Well, first of all, there was a coaching change. Leo Gibson stepped aside as player coach, and
Yep,
Stefan Stokic, who had been assistant coach, longtime Comet player,
yep, yep.
is now the coach. And what's interesting about Stefan coming up is he's a protege of Vlatko Andonovski,
Yeah,
the current coach of the U.S. women's soccer team, who had been
absolutely.
the Comets coach, won a title with the Comets, former player for the Comets and the Wichita Wings, among other teams. And so I think you're going to see a different style, or maybe a
Right.
back to the past style with the Comets. And
Yeah.
you're going to see some roster changes too, Jeremy.
Do you think there's going to be an adjustment period with the coaching change? I would assume probably not, considering Stefan is really familiar with the systems and obviously there's a challenge anytime you're going from assistant to head coach. So talk about that a little bit. What do
Yeah,
you
I think it's tough to determine how many changes you're going to witness in the
right,
coming year, because this was Leo Gibson's team. Stephon coached from the bench. Now he gets to put together his roster,
right.
develop the style that he wants to see. And so I think in some cases it'll feel like continuity. In some cases it'll feel like a more stark transition. So, I mean, I think time will tell a little bit to answer your question. But
Is is Leo Gibson going to stay a part of the organization, or what does that look like?
I think that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that question. I've had a couple text exchanges with him, actually not about Comets, but just
Yeah,
life in general. And so I don't have a confirmed read in terms of what his status is going to be for next year. But I've stayed in contact with him,
sure.
and wish his family only the best. I've great respect for the
Oh,
Gibson family.
absolutely. I mean, I'm good friends with Leo. We go way back, and so I respect Leo a lot, and I think he did tremendously as the head coach of the Comets. I think it's really difficult being a player coach. I think it's really hard. You can ask a lot of players that do it, like Nick Pereira, and it can't be an easy thing to do. But let's talk about what was your biggest surprise from the Comets last year. Like you said, you were disappointed. What was the highlight of the season for you?
Well, let's if you want to start with the biggest disappointment is they had a chance down the stretch
Yeah,
to set themselves up in a good playoff
yeah,
position, and they wound up
absolutely.
losing two home games in a row to Florida and Baltimore. And if they
Right.
had won those two games, they could have been the team representing the
Oh,
East in the
absolutely.
final, and it just didn't work out that way. They put themselves in a position where they had to go a play-in game in Utica. They were winning that game,
Yeah.
and then the wheels fell off the bus, I guess is the old
Yep.
expression. And so that to me was the disappointment. I think the highlight was the commitment they made in
hmm
in bringing Zach Reggett
That was a huge
to, yeah,
signing.
I was going to
Huge.
say, from Florida via Harrisburg to Kansas City,
Yeah.
because not only what does he bring on the field, but you're already seeing a major signing this summer of one of his former Florida teammates, Chad Vandergriff. And so
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
what you're seeing is people see a future in Kansas City. They want to be part of that future. And Stepan Stokic is building a culture. The Comets are a proud franchise. This is a franchise that one way or the other goes dates itself back to
Right.
1981, maybe in a different way than Milwaukee Wave
Right.
traces its lineage, but it's a proud franchise, and last year was not good enough.
Well, and I think the addition of 10 alone is going to make your back line so much better than it was. Because I think, one of my biggest disappointments with the Comets last year was they would start games really well and then they would fizzle out in the ending stages of games. And you just look at it and you're like, with the quality that they had, why is this happening? Like, why do they not have the ability to close out games? It was just, it was a very confusing team at the end of the season.
It's interesting. I spent maybe too much time online reading fans' comments as well as
Yeah,
diagnosis of how fans might have done differently. A lot of second guessing of
right,
Comets' tactics and decisions. I get the notion that fans and Comets fans critique the style of play
yeah,
that maybe led that way. For me, it's sort of a different proposition. Is that the Comets want to score goals. There are some teams that want to defend. The San Diego Sockers will
hmm,
defend as a team, and they score plenty of goals. But you're going to get solid defense, and it starts
right,
before it's part of the defenders go up.
right,
Kansas City has a lot of players on each line that want to score, which is great when you're putting in 12 goals a game. It's not so good when you're putting in
right,
three. And so, I mean, for me, there was a parallel between three teams last season, Jeremy. It was Kansas City, Florida, and Empire, where you have
yeah, the
teams
strikers, yeah,
that you have teams with defenders, some defenders that like to push up.
hmm,
When the goals come, everything is great, but when you're not
right,
scoring, you are susceptible to the counterattack, and that was, to me, the Achilles heel for the Comets last year, and something I know that the Stefan Sokic is going to deal with is
yeah.
Kansas City's transition game.
Well, and I do think that part of the desire to score goals is because you have a team in Milwaukee that likes to score goals, and if it comes down to goal differential at the end of the season, that's a big part of it. And even Milwaukee, I was watching Milwaukee, obviously. I'm a Milwaukee fan, so that's my team. But I was watching them, and we had games where we struggled to score goals, and we had guys like Ian Bennett. But it seemed as though if Ian was off, the whole team was off. And I don't think Kansas City has that problem because I think you guys have such a rounded roster that it's kind of nice that you can kind of share the wealth, so to speak. I mean, obviously, bringing Zach and you had Leo, you had guys that could score goals. So, but like you said, there were games where you were only scoring 3 goals, and you're like, "What's happening?" So, hopefully, that changes this year, and you see a little bit more production. Because I do think if you can revamp that roster, you guys are going to be really good.
Well, I think there's talent there. The Comets announced the signing of a local player this week, Cisco Lopez Jr. I saw him uh, in training last year. This actually, I've seen him years ago in
Yeah,
high school, so I've seen him play indoor and outdoor. He's the real deal. I think that there are a lot of talented players in this league and other leagues. What makes great teams different than good teams is fit, culture, character, and I think
right,
that if you look to a franchise like the San Diego Sockers, they're all about fit, culture, and character. And so they can bring in
right.
players from all over the place, and they become part of. They adopt, they embrace that
Sure,
culture.
yeah.
And so it, they found a way to make that work, plug in different players, and I think that's what Kansas City is trying to figure out. Is yes, there are talented players, but are you all moving in the same direction? And
Right.
that's going to be the test for this Comets team this coming year, and I'm excited to see the difference.
So one of the things I want to talk about because it's one of the greatest rivalries in the league is the Milwaukee and Kansas City rivalry. Tell me your thoughts about that. I know you get a lot of crud from Milwaukee fans, and we get a lot of crud from KC fans, and it's such a great rivalry.
Well, so a couple things. First of all, hey, now that Leo Gibson's gone, who are Milwaukee fans going to be yelling and complaining about? So they're going to have to
Zach,
figure out.
Zach, that's who they're going to complain about.
Well, or it could be goalkeeping. We'll see
Yeah,
where they
we'll
go
see.
with it.
We'll see.
But regardless of the yeah, the back and forth on the field, off the field
Hmm.
rivalry. There's a lot of respect between these two franchises.
Oh
They've been
yeah,
playing each other for a
absolutely.
long time. I go back to the first year in the NPSL era when it was the Milwaukee Wave versus the Kansas City Attack, and Keith Tozer
Yep,
was the attack
yep.
coach. And so
I
the,
remember those days.
they've been playing each other since 1991. So this is a pretty long. There may have been a couple years off, but it's a pretty long and pretty intense rivalry. There have been players who played for both franchises over the over the years, and so there is respect.
Yeah.
But there's no team. In my opinion, there's no team that the Kansas City Comets take greater pleasure in beating
Oh,
than the
absolutely.
Milwaukee
And you
Wave.
know what? You know what? We'll say the same thing, to be honest with you. Like, and it's so funny because we can beat you guys in Milwaukee. We have a really hard time beating you guys on the blue carpet. I don't know why. There's something about that blue carpet that we really struggle with. But, one of the guys, and I know you praise him a lot, that I think really made a difference in Milwaukee is Willie B. I think he had a tremendous first year in Milwaukee, and I think he found a home in Milwaukee, hopefully. So
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that, because I know you praised him a lot last year.
well, and it's sincere, and so, I mean, I think Willie B will admit this. He's not the type of goalkeeper who's going to play the ball on his feet out of the back
Nope.
like Josh Lamos did. That's not what he's bringing.
No.
He's a shot stopper. He is a momentum changer, and I think he made a huge difference. If you think about Milwaukee 2 seasons ago, and getting knocked out of the playoffs unceremoniously by the Sockers. I think Wave fans were scratching their heads. What happened to our team? This is not who we are.
Well,
And
yeah,
they made adjustments over the off season, and then lo and behold, they win the East last year. And I
yeah.
think the Comets look to that and say, hey, if Milwaukee can do it, so can we.
Well, and I think too, you look back at that year, it was a year that we were just coming off of COVID and we didn't play. I'm not making excuses, but it certainly doesn't make it any easier when you're facing a team like San Diego in the very first round of the playoffs. I mean, I don't think anybody was going to beat San Diego that year, and I think, it's one of those things that Kansas City is always going to be one of those teams that aspire to be like San Diego because right now San Diego is the class of the league. I don't think there's any denying that. Even though they didn't win the cup this year, I'd still say they're the class of the league.
Well, and look at the moves they've already made. They brought in Gabriel Costa from Empire and Drew
Yep.
Ruggles from Florida, and so just because you mentioned my relationship with Milwaukee fans, I've been very quiet the last couple of months as Milwaukee fans have been salivating about the possibility of maybe getting some way players back from Florida, and it didn't happen. You had first Chad Vandergriff signing with Kansas City, and then you
Yeah.
had Drew Ruggles signing with San Diego. So if the assumption was Florida Florida's departure was going to all of a sudden bring back some wave magic pre-COVID.
Right.
It didn't turn out that way, did it?
Well, but I'll be honest with you, and this is going to be controversial even for Wave fans. I don't think the Wave really needed help in that area. I think we're fine defensively. I think we're fine in the midfield. What I think the Wave really needs is somebody to support Ian up top. I just think that's something that needs to be done because Ian can't do it all by himself. And we
Well,
and we saw that against San Diego in the playoffs. He tried to do everything himself and he couldn't. That's just the bottom line.
I actually I think what I saw that Giuliano did last year, I think really putting some faith in some of the younger players. There is life after Ian Bennett, just like there's life after Leo Gibson. At some
Yeah,
point, Ian Bennett will
absolutely.
say, "I've had a great career. I'm done." But I saw enough in terms of a pipeline last year to convince me that Milwaukee is going to be competitive for years to come. It's
Oh,
just a
absolutely.
question of what are the pieces you need to put in place to compete against the San Diego and Chihuahua. They had a great season too, so congratulations to them. But
Yeah,
having been out at San Diego last year and watching the Comets play at San Diego, it really convinced me that two things. First of all, you have to minimize the mistakes you make along the
yeah,
season, right? And if you
yeah.
find yourself against San Diego in a playoff series, you need to be as disciplined as possible so that way
Right.
you don't make the mistakes that San Diego wants you to make. And congratulations to Chihuahua for figuring this out.
No,
But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're going to be they were already a good team. They got one of the pure rising stars of the league with Costa as a free
Yeah,
agent from Empire, and there's no telling how many teams wanted Drew Ruggles. So good for
yeah.
them. But
And the fact that he goes to a team like San Diego is incredible. It's unreal.
so I'll give you a tidbit, Jeremy, because I know soccer fans or soccer fans like to talk about their history and how great they are, et cetera, et cetera. If you go back to 1984, they
Yeah,
were the beneficiary of another team's basically dissolution, and that was the Golden Bay Earthquakes. And so there were two leagues at that point, the Major Indoor Soccer League and the North American Soccer League. And they had just finished their outdoor season when the Golden Bay Earthquakes, kind of now today, the San Jose Earthquakes,
yeah.
disbanded. And that was the point where they picked up Steve Jungle and Fernando Clavijo, two of the
Right, right,
if you were to ask me to vote on the top six players of all time, Jungle for sure, and maybe Clavijo would be on that point. They
right.
were able to grab free agents, bring them in, and then go on an
Yeah,
amazing run after that. So this isn't the first time that San Diego has ever figured something like this out. Go back just a couple years during COVID. Harrisburg wasn't playing. Tavoy Morgan goes out to San
right.
Diego on loan,
Mm-hmm.
then stays out there. And what a difference has he made out front? I mean, something that San Diego has done. This
Right,
isn't just 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. This is 40 something years of attracting free agents, top line free
right.
agents, and making them fit, making them part of the team, the culture
Well,
there. And so Drew Ruggles is just the latest example.
and I do think you're starting to see more high caliber players coming to play in the MASL. I mean, just a couple of years ago, Landon Donovan, um, gosh, what was the other guy's name from,
Jermaine Jones played for what was Ontario at the time.
yeah, and then you guys had Ellis. You guys had Ellis for a year, right?
Well, we had him for a few years, and then he went to St. Louis last year.
Yep, yep. I mean, the thing is, I think you're starting to see the dynamic of indoors starting to go on the rise, and I think you're starting to see more people realize, hey, this is not a commodity. This is actually a pretty fun sport to watch. Um,
Well, so I'll give you one other thing, and this is a topic dear to some Milwaukee fans: is the challenge of visas. And so,
oh, geez, don't, yeah,
no, give me a second, and I'll try to pull it through. So both Milwaukee and Kansas City over recent years have faced challenges with visas in terms of the impact on their roster. I think what this is going to mean is more outreach to U.S. citizens who've grown up through
yeah,
youth ranks in the U.S. to play. And so I think there's going to be an even greater push into the
Yeah.
local soccer communities to bring in players who are
Yeah.
U.S. citizens. And so I think that just like we've witnessed over the last, I don't know, decade or two, uh, an evolution of the indoor game,
Yeah.
very very much in large part due to former futsal players, particularly from
Right.
Brazil. And you've seen how that has affected the style of indoor soccer. I think we're ready for the next iteration, and we'll
Right.
see where it takes it.
Well, and I do think one of the biggest recent challenges, especially for Milwaukee, was Josh Lamos. I think people were expecting him to come back to Milwaukee if the visa thing did pan out. But again, that's why I think the signing of Willie B was so important because, yes, you lose a quality goalkeeper, but you gained a quality goalkeeper, so the loss wasn't as big. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The visa issues have been prevalent. I think they're starting to get worked out a little bit. We're still not where we want to be in terms of that. But, one of the things I do want to talk about, because obviously he's national now, is Vodka with the U.S. Women's team. Tell me this, were you surprised when they appointed Vodka as the manager of the U.S. women's team? Because I was. I'll be honest with you, I was.
So I mean, we had gotten wind of it as a possibility. He let me walk back a little bit. After his playing career, uh, there are a lot of Kansas City connections to him. I'm recording this right
Sure,
now at Park University, and he's a graduate of our university. He actually didn't play for us. He went to school, uh, later in life, but then he
sure.
was assistant coach of our men's soccer team here. But
Yeah,
he won a championship with the Comets back in 2014. He then wound up coaching Kansas City's first NWSL team and won two championships there. So here's
right.
somebody who has three championships,
Yeah,
respected by players. Uh, yeah, was it a little bit controversial? I guess it depends on your perspective. What I'm not surprised about is criticism that he takes, because that comes with that job, but the
right.
expectations are high from that job. But here's the thing: it's becoming way more competitive, and this notion that the
Oh,
US can put any 11 players on the field and lift a trophy, that's a relic of the past. And so
well,
any coach was going to have a challenge this time. It's just unfortunate for him that he's
no,
catching
yeah.
criticism from all quarters.
No, yeah, I mean, and I think here's the thing, I think if you don't know the game of indoor soccer, you're like, who is this? Who is Vlatko? Nobody knows him because if you don't know the game of indoor soccer, you're not really going to know that name. But I think he's done a really good job with, okay, I'm an international manager now, but you're right. That notion of, hey, we could put any 11 women on the pitch and we're going to dominate you. I mean, look at what happened with the group that they're in right now. They finished second in the group to the Netherlands. So, I mean, it's just proving that, look, yes, I still think the U.S. has a very legitimate chance to lift the trophy, but I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for Blanco by any stretch.
Well, that's the thing about sports, Jeremy. You know this, whether it's the MASL or a national team or whatever
Yeah,
else, you're going to face criticism. If you're a Milwaukee player and you come to Kansas City or Baltimore, you're
yeah,
going to hear it from opposing fans. And if you're a
yeah,
coach, you're not only going to hear from opposing fans, but in a lot of cases, you're going to hear from your own
yeah,
fans questioning everything you do. Why did you play this player? Why didn't you play this player? Why did you make this decision? Why didn't you make that decision? And bringing it back a little bit to the MASL, I can't speak for Milwaukee, but I can tell you I spent a lot of time last year in dialogues with Comets fans who were questioning everything, not only questioning the coaching, definitely questioning the goalkeeping. And so I found myself in a lot of times as the defender of the Comets. But
yeah,
if you don't go to this could be the women's national team, it could be the Wave, it could be a college soccer team, it could be whatever. If
Yeah.
you don't go to practice every game or every day, and you
Yeah.
don't really have an inside view of the players, it's really hard to know from an outside, why does a coach pick this lineup? Because you don't know who's putting in 100% effort and who's not. You don't know who's matching up
Oh,
really
it's
well and
yeah.
who's
I
not.
mean, it's definitely something you go through as a coach. I mean, I don't know if you knew this about me, but that's what I do for a living. I'm a soccer coach. And yeah, you do go through that all the time. It's really difficult. People are always going to question your decisions. And if you want a prime example, try being Giuliano Oliviero, who takes the helm from legendary coach Keith Tozer. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of pressure that poor guy was under those first 2 seasons or a couple of seasons, But obviously, Giuliano has done incredibly well in Milwaukee, and I think a lot of people question that hire too because you know, people that know Giuliano, like myself and a lot of other people, they know he's a quiet guy. He's not going to be that guy who's up in your face like, what are you doing? He's a quiet guy. So I think that was kind of questioned because if you look at the two personalities, they're two very different personalities. Keith Tozer had no problem telling you, hey, you messed up. And Giuliano will tell you the same thing, but he'll do it in a completely different way. So I guess that's my question to you is what kind of personality does Stefan have? Is he a quiet guy? Is he a in your face guy? Like what kind of guy is he?
So I've been to several practices where he's been running the
Yeah,
drills. I find him to be a more instructive coach, and just a little bit of personal background. So my son is a youth soccer coach and has gotten to
yeah,
spend a little bit of time with Stefan, who has no problem giving advice in a constructive way. Not that you did this wrong, but
sure,
you might consider doing this instead. And so I see him more as I'm going to help you get to where you need to be rather than tell you
right,
where you need to be. And don't make this about soccer, Jeremy. Just make it about life. We all find ourselves in work experiences where we
right.
have supervisors, managers, etc. What is it that motivates you? Not you, Jeremy, but your viewers. Do you want somebody who is going to be
Right.
in your face? And some people respond better to that.
Well,
Or do
and
you
I'll
want
be
somebody?
honest. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I think people, and I say this all the time, people get caught up in the X's, the O's, the winning, the losing. And it's really not about that at the end of the day. Your job as a coach is to, make people better. That's it. Your job is make people better athletes and make people better people. Period. End of story. That's it. You're not. So, I look at these people and me as a youth coach, look, I run into coaches all the time where all they do is they care about the X's, they care about the O's, they care about winning, and this is at the youth level. So imagine what it's like when you're coaching a professional indoor team or a professional MLS team or whatever the level. Like, you see that a lot, so it's good to see people like Stefan who, yes, he wants to win games. That's your goal as a coach, but he also wants to make people better people. So that's a great compliment to him.
So let me just add one thing. With the understanding this is a business, and ultimately you need to have fans in the seats, and people
Yeah,
want to see you raise trophies, and I get all that. I think what we try to do in Kansas City, and a lot of credit to my broadcast partner Nick Vassos, who is the voice of the
I
Comets
love
and the
him.
legend here, is we we understand that this is also about people, and so part of our job on the Comets broadcast is to tell stories, to invite viewers to learn about personalities, to make connections with players, coaches, fans, etc. Because
Right.
in the end, I agree with you, this is all about people. And if we get so big or so distant that we forget that, I mean, ultimately, it's about the fans,
Right.
right? It's the fans in the seats. It's the fans who are watching us on Twitch and in Kansas City on 38th the spot. It's
Right.
about the players. It's about everything. And I think that's what gets fans coming back is they feel it's something more than a game.
Right.
And I, I'm part of a Comets franchise that values these personal relationships. And
Well,
so, I mean, it's part of my job to do this as well.
and it's very interesting to me, right? Because, I hear a lot of people say, I want the league to grow, I want the league to grow. And in a way, I get it because I want the league to grow. I love the sport, I love what I do. I contribute to MASL off the wall. I do that. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't want it to grow too much because one of the things that makes the Major Arena Soccer League so great is the fact that the players and the coaches and the broadcasters are so accessible. I mean, if you look at Major League Baseball or, the National Basketball Association or the NFL, what have you, you're not going to see people like you sitting down with people like me just to do an interview. It's not something that you're going to see in most any other sport. So, this idea that people want this league to grow, yes, I want it to grow too, but the challenge becomes how do we make it grow without losing that fan interaction?
Well, I think that's a great question. As somebody who grew up watching indoor soccer in the '80s, even before I was old enough to drive to games, I feel a responsibility to give back. There were
Yeah,
players,
yeah,
announcers, etc., who spent time with me, and and I know how that changed my life. That somebody
sure,
like that would take an interest in me. So I don't put myself up in the same category as the players, the coaches, etc. But for the part I have, I do have a responsibility to engage, and I don't
of
see
course.
this as a burden. I see this as an opportunity. Is to
Yeah,
educate more and more people about the game that we love, and hopefully to retain the excitement that we have, and to attract new fans who want to be a part of it, who either don't know anything about indoor soccer, don't really know much about soccer, but see this
yeah.
as more than just a game.
So, one last question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here. If I were to ask you, what is your prediction for the Comets this season? What would your answer be? Where do you see the Comets going this year?
I'd love for you to invite me in about a month because the roster is not complete yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my answer would be based on the roster. I mean, well, so let me hedge my bets a couple different ways, Jeremy. First of all, we don't know yet what the division
right.
alignment is going to
Yes,
be next
that's
year.
true.
I don't know if there's going to be two divisions, two conferences, three divisions, or what. So I mean, part of that is speculation. We
Right,
also know that Florida is out, but we have heard about all sorts of other possibilities. So we don't know if we're looking at 13 teams,
right.
14 teams, or whatever else. That aside, and understanding the Comets don't have all their pieces
Nope.
together, they will be better than a fifth place team next year. I can
Oh, I
guarantee it.
guarantee you.
I think the question is going to be uh, depth on their roster in terms of do they fill some of their vacancies with players who are
Yeah.
ready to go in, or are these players that need to develop? And we'll see about that. But just like any other team, and I know Milwaukee has had injury issues over the years. If the
Oh,
Comets
yeah.
stay healthy,
Don't get me started on that.
I know if the Comets stay healthy, their first line and their second line too are going to score a lot of goals, and so
Right.
they're going to be competitive regardless. If if the injury bug hits, We'll see
Right.
how much depth they have. But
Well,
you could say ask just about any announcer in the league, and they probably would give you a similar response.
well, and I'll tell you, I think in the conference that we're in, I think it's always the top three teams vying for that spot, right? You have Milwaukee, you have Kansas City, and you have Baltimore. And I don't think you're going to see something very different from that. I think, we always come up with great rosters. Now, the question is, okay, where does, you know, teams like St. Louis, that's another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about with you. That rivalry with St. Louis, because obviously, it's one of those things that St. Louis always gives you a run for your money. Even if they're having a bad season, they seem to play you very well.
Well, St. Louis and Kansas City could compete in anything. It could be in lawn darts, it could be in whatever, and there's going to be a rivalry there. And so I don't
Hmm.
want to understate the rivalry between the Ambush and the Comets because
Right.
there's a uh, historic and historical rivalry between the indoor soccer franchises in both towns, and now we're seeing it in MLS.
Yeah.
I just, in terms of the 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 intensity, I feel it more when it's Milwaukee and Kansas City. But
Sure.
getting to, I not only called the three games that were in Kansas City last year, but Nick Vassos and I called a game in St. Louis on Sirius XM FC
Yep.
last season.
Yep.
It, it's it's a serious rivalry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just.
Absolutely.
But if I were to ask you rank Milwaukee versus Baltimore versus Milwaukee and Kansas City, there's some fans that would say Milwaukee and Baltimore is a more intense rivalry, and I get it.
I
This is
mean,
just my perception.
if I were to rank the two, I'd put Milwaukee and Baltimore ahead of Milwaukee and Kansas City, just because there's been more battles for titles between the two franchises. But yeah, I do agree with you. There's something very special about that Kansas City St. Louis rivalry, and I'm hoping that eventually I live in Arizona, so the likelihood of me getting to Kansas City is kind of slim, but I have heard that they're trying to bring indoor soccer to Arizona, so maybe we'll see. But hey, man, I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. You've been fantastic.
Well,
And I'll,
I was going to say thank you, Jeremy. If you'll indulge me by closing with a Phoenix indoor soccer story, since you mentioned this, maybe this is a good way to end. So back in ish around 1984, I was a fan of the Los Angeles Lasers. So this would have been the 83-84 season. Phoenix had an indoor soccer franchise with two nicknames. They were originally the Phoenix Inferno, and then for one
right.
season, they were the Phoenix Pride. So uh, we used to sit behind a goal. We were extremely obnoxious. We would jeer the opposing goalie, and Phoenix had a goalie whose name was Blaggy Tominzic, and he walks over to our goal for, I think it was the second quarter, and then blows kisses to all of us. What do
Jeez.
you do when the opposing goalie knows you're going to razz them and then blows kisses at you? I mean, it was so disarming and so brilliant that it would be great for Phoenix to get indoor soccer back, because I have fond memories of games going way back then.
That reminds me a lot of, I don't know, you probably recognize this name, but that reminds me a lot of Otto Orff from
Yep,
Cleveland. He used to do similar things like
yep,
that.
yep.
But hey, man, I appreciate you, buddy. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Well, good luck the rest of this season. Looking forward to your other podcast
Oh,
episodes. Hope you get
absolutely, man.
guests from around the league saying yes.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Take care,
Thanks.
bud.